Have you ever swiped endlessly on dating apps without any luck? Or maybe you've matched with someone great only to have the conversation fizzle out before you even meet? Well, if that's you, you'll want to tune into this week's episode. I'm joined by the world's expert on online dating, who will share insider tips and strategies for making your profile stand out and keeping those messages flowing. We'll dive into the do's and don'ts of online dating and learn how to turn digital connections into real, meaningful relationships. This episode isn't just for those struggling with dating apps, it's for anyone looking to up their online dating game and find success in the digital dating world. You're listening to the Inner Confidence Podcast, home to the social funnel method. My name is Robbie Kramer. I've been a coach since 2007, and I've helped over 1,300 digital nomads, expats, and remote workers build an amazing social and dating life abroad. My mission is simple: to help you position yourself to meet stunning women and make awesome friends en route to becoming the most confident and attractive version you can be. I have an intense hatred for fluff and useless advice that you can't take action on, so tune in each week to learn the most effective and implementable strategies to level up your game. So stick around, let's go. So we're back with Alex. Dude, it's great to have you back on the show. And a lot of the guys in my community are getting so much value from your online dating content. I feel like it's kind of like the gold standard out there when it comes to...
Nice. I'm glad to hear. I always appreciate when people are enjoying my content. And
yeah, for sure, man. So tell us, what's your story with getting involved with, becoming an online dating expert?
Do you want like the longer version of the story or the shorter version of the story?
I'm interested in the longer version.
Okay, longer version of the story. Okay, 1991. No, I'm just kidding. I wasn't good with girls growing up. I moved around when I was a kid, so I was always like the new kid at the school. So I think that caused me to always feel like an outsider. Plus, English was my second language and whatnot. And the middle school and high school I went to is like all Americans. There was no like foreigners there. But yeah, so I was never good with girls. Didn't lose my virginity until I was like 19 years old. And when I got to college, I started like going out a lot, partying, and trying to figure out how to approach girls. That was really the main thing I was focusing on. Alcohol was just a means to that end because I was just so nervous that I couldn't really talk to girls without alcohol. And I was like just failing 99% of the time, occasionally getting a rare success here and there. And then I read the book The Game when I was about 22 years old, and that's when I discovered the pickup community. So I started like looking into a lot of it. I started watching a lot of RSD videos. And with just like a lot of other, I think Simple Pickup was a company that I watched in the early days because I thought they were funny. I started following a lot of the pickup advice that definitely expedited the learning curve. Of course, there was a good amount of trial and error. I think by the time I was like 24, 25, I was pretty good. Like I was able to get laid regularly. And then around the age of 25, I started working like a sales job where I was just working like 50 hours a week, 40, 50 hours a week. And I just didn't have the energy to go out and do cold approach like I was doing up until that point. So I started really focusing on online dating. And then I started applying some of my sales concepts to online dating. That's when I saw like the biggest increase in results. So around 25, 26. So this would be like 2015 or so. I started really focusing on online dating. Around 2016, I started a free Facebook group just to share stories. And it kind of organically grew. I never really promoted or anything like that. I never thought I would be a dating coach or anything close to that. The Facebook group grew, and then the company I worked for went bankrupt, so I had a lot of free time on my hands, so I kind of ran with it. And then, it's just been kind of a journey since then. I've just basically been trying new shit, seeing it. I mean, for the last, I would say 4 years, there hasn't been really anything that, revolutionary that's changed my perspective. There's been tweaks, and there's been, kind of the concepts and the principles I believe have been pretty solid for, the last half a decade or so, with some adjustments, but not too many.
Yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't heard, the longer version of your story before, but I have a similar situation where I was basically working for a company, never expected to be a dating coach, that's for sure. And then company went out of business and there you go. Mine was I was in investment banking, which I hated with a passion. So.
Oh, okay. Totally different. I actually liked my career. I enjoyed I was working in the solar industry. I was doing sales. I actually liked it. But the whole solar industry crashed kind of when Trump got elected because there was a lot of fear about whether he would get rid of the tax incentive program that exists with solar. So the whole industry basically crashed a lot.
Yeah, I was also in sales, so I got a lot of real, sales experience and real world experience, which obviously translates to dating, but not quite the same sort of sales. That's for sure. So yeah, tell me more about before you were doing the online dating stuff. So you were just doing a lot of cold approach.
Day game, night
Yeah, I started with
game,
cold opening.
bar sort of stuff.
Yeah, day game, night game, mostly night game. I think I started initially with night
Uh-huh.
game because that's where because I was I never really drank during the day
Right.
with someone. I was never an alcoholic, so mainly night game. And then when I learned about pickup, that's when I started doing more day game. But for like when I was in college, I would never approach girls during the daytime. I would only approach girls at like a party or at a bar. Yeah, and then the pickup community is what kind of got me into doing day game as well. But yeah, it was mainly those night game, day game.
So 2015, it was mostly Tinder at the time, right? A little bit of Bumble.
Yeah, that's when Tinder was probably the biggest. Yeah, Tinder, and I was actually using Craigslist too. Surprisingly, that's all over because they got rid of their dating section, whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it. But yeah, I was using Craigslist and lots of Tinder, and I think Bumble was pretty new on the scene, so I started using
Got
that.
it. And a personal question: what, like, are you dating anyone now? Or I'm sure. Basically, are you in a monogamous relationship, or you're single and out there?
No, I've had a girlfriend for 3.5 years now. We were going pretty strong. Known her for 5 years. We were friends with benefits for like a year, and then we started dating. It's like a one-way open relationship where I can hook up with other girls, but I don't do it nearly as much as I thought I would. So mostly I just hang out with her and work and stuff. But occasionally we'll like hang out with other girls together.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's usually the case when, from most of the guys I talk to that are pretty good with this stuff. So it's interesting to me that girls typically, if they really like their dude, they just don't really care if he does as much, and they have no desire to really, be open. It's
Yeah, I do think though that like there's like nuance to it. Like I think my girlfriend would get like really pissed off if I was to like start going on dates with a girl and whatnot. So yeah, I think for girls it's just like they just want to make sure that there's no emotional anything
Right.
to it. It's purely physical. But I don't think every girl will go along with it. I think some girls are just too jealous by nature. But you need like a relatively non-jealous girlfriend for that to work long term. I think short term you can get any girl to go along with it, but long term I think you need like a relatively non-jealous girl.
Yeah, I've definitely found that to be the case. Before I was living in Ukraine, I found I was hanging a little bit down in South America too, in Brazil. Found the Brazilians to be super jealous. Ukrainians definitely, the more feminine women tend to be a lot more jealous than the American westernized chicks. That's for sure.
Yeah, I can see that being a hard time in Ukraine. Is there since you were a foreigner, you never had to deal with the draft?
No. I mean, I left before the war in 2022.
Oh, okay.
So,
All right.
but yeah, I do have a few friends who, went back actually after being away for a long time. And they don't have to worry about that.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
So, but yeah, for the locals, they do. And you're Belarusian or?
Yeah, originally that's where I was born, but I left when I was 7. I've only been back like once when I was 16.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah. So you've been in Miami that whole time?
No, I grew up in Jersey. Went to school in Boston, and then after college, I moved to LA. That's when I really like LA is when I was really like learning pickup. That was like that part of my life, and then moved to Miami in 2018.
Oh, nice. So we were probably in LA around the same time. I was here from like 2013, splitting my time between LA and New York until 2017, 2018 when I moved to Ukraine.
Yeah, it's just a period. Yeah. What part of LA did you live in?
I lived all over, but mainly West Hollywood.
Yeah, I lived in Hollywood and West Hollywood. Did you go to the Roosevelt a lot?
Went to the Roosevelt a decent amount. I would always see the RSD guys there. Owen would always be there, and simple pickup guys. I knew those guys. They were kind of running around on the scene because I've been in the dating coaching scene since like 2006 or 7.
Oh, okay, much longer than me.
Yeah, I mean I'm older than you. I'm 42. I'm guessing you're mid 30s, right, or late 30s?
34.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, I was doing a lot of like bottle service stuff back then, and we had some friends who were promoters who had hookups, and they had model houses in LA. So from that period, like 2014 through 2017, I had a pretty good setup where I would basically just go out to promoter table. I could drink for free and just hang with those girls. But
do you ever run into Mystery during those days? Because I think that's when.
Yeah, a few times. And then he actually came out to Ukraine. I was gone, but we messaged a little bit back and forth and gave him some good recommendations on what to do. I think he was doing some programs out there. This is like 2018.
Oh, cool.
2019. Yeah.
I got him on after years of try. I got him on my podcast for the first time like 6
Oh,
months ago or
amazing.
something like
I haven't
that.
seen that one. I know he doesn't do a lot of interviews, so.
Yeah. He says that it was the longest one he's ever done. I don't know if it's true or not, but
How long was it?
It was him and Bradicus.
Okay.
No, sorry, not Bradicus. The other guy, his assistant, not Bradicus. I always get those confused. The other British dude that's kind of skinny.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't know the guy's name though.
Yeah.
I know they're running some programs in London now.
Are they? Oh, I don't know. I like kind of lost touch afterwards. I tried to get him back on, but they said, yeah, we'll let you know. They never got back to me.
How long was the interview?
It's like going on a little bit over 2 hours, I think.
Oh, okay. Nice. Yeah, I'll have to definitely check that one out. So has it been like super popular on your channel?
Not as nearly as popular as I would expect it to be. It did okay, but Mystery is like kind of cryptic. Like he gives like these general answers that I think he knows what he's trying to get at, but like the audience doesn't know. So it's like a lot of, you have to like dig a lot to get him like to get him to like, not that he's trying to dodge the question, he's not, but he's like I don't know, just like his communication style is like these overly general questions, or overly general answers. Like, okay, so what's your tip for a guy who like moves to a new city, like to find girls? And he'd be like, just go to the party. I'd be like, okay, like which party?
How do I get to the party?
He's like, you know, the party. Every night there's a party going on. You want to be at the party? I was like, okay, well, like, how does he get to the party? Like, where do you start with that? Like, so it's like a lot of digging. So that part was like interesting. Definitely had to go into like hardcore interview mode to get him to like elaborate on those points. We disagree on some things, but I didn't want to turn into a debate. Like we totally disagree about online dating. He thinks online dating is like stupid. We disagree about the 7-hour rule. I think that's also kind of silly. I think, you know, you can hook up with a girl within half an hour, an hour and a half at most.
Absolutely. I think if you're using online dating to filter for those sorts of girls that want to hook up fast, I've seen that a lot with my clients. So I'm in agreement with you.
I think if you get an ETF girl from Tinder and you wait 7 hours to try to sleep with her, by hour 3, she's going to be bored and she's already going to be like swiping and looking for another guy to hang out with.
100%.
I think you're going to shoot yourself in the foot because like people get bored and tired. But even with cold approach, like I just can't recall like any time where I met a girl from cold approach where it took me like even like 5 or 6 hours. Typically it's like maybe at most like 3 hours, maybe 4 hours if there's crazy LMR. I guess if you include like, even like if I do like 2 dates, that still like comes out to maybe an hour and a half on the first date, hour and a half on the second date, still comes out to 3 hours. So
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it's like a little bit of a limiting belief he has where he thinks it takes that long, but who knows? Maybe he just has a totally different seduction style, which maybe takes a little bit longer to kick in. I'm not sure.
I would guess it might be like an age thing too, because I remember in my like early 20s, mid 20s when I got into this stuff, I remember thinking, wow, that 7-hour rule, there's actually a lot of truth to that just from my own findings. But then as time went on, you know, and I think the world just became more slutty in general, right? I think that it's kind of like you're waiting 7 hours, you're doing something wrong a lot of the time, right? Unless the girl's very traditional or what have you. But I feel like with online dating and then with the proliferation of Instagram, like everything just happens way faster on a sexual level, it seems like. So maybe he's just kind of stuck in the past with that.
Yeah, but I feel like even if the girl's traditional, you're better off splitting it up into like 2 or 3 hour-and-a-half dates. Yeah. I mean, like 6 hours in, I'm fucking exhausted. I don't have the energy. Like it's 7 hours, I don't even have the energy to fuck the girl anymore because I'm so exhausted. Like it's a first date is kind of exhausting, or at least for introverts it is. Like I'm kind of more on the introverted side. Like 3 hours in, I'm like tired already. Like, you know, so but yeah, like separating it like 2 dates, I think would probably be more efficient if the girl's like really traditional, or even 3 dates,
right?
Like 1.5, 2 hours each date or something like that.
Before we continue with the episode, if you're going out and getting numbers and want to improve your texting so more of those numbers convert to dates, check out my texting course. It will teach you the psychology of digital communication, which is surprisingly polar opposite in almost every way compared to live interactions. What works in person doesn't work in text, so this is almost always the area that men are making easily correctable mistakes that they're totally unconscious of. My course will optimize your texting, which is a skill you really need to master, and the best part is you can cut and paste your way to mastery.
mastery. You can find the link in the description. It costs less than a round of drinks. And if you're going on dates and want to learn what to do so more of them end up in your bedroom, check out my free dating protocol. You'll learn to be an interesting guy to talk to, even if you're serious or over analytical. How to help a girl open up on a date, why talking about sex is a big taboo on dates if you want to get laid, and what to talk about instead, going from the first touch to the first kiss, how to invite her over to your place, and why you should skip 80% of the physical escalation moves you're doing back at your place. The link to this free guide is in the description. Out of all the guys I know, the only ones who manage to consistently land 8s and up are the guys who have built a social circle. You can certainly approach women and use the apps to get laid, but those strategies simply don't really work on top tier women. Think about it. If she's hot, she has hot friends. And hot girls get invited to high status events almost every single night. So when it comes time to get ready for your date, do you think she's gonna show up or flake last minute when her girlfriend texts her to come to some awesome thing? As if she's gonna choose the random dude on Hinge or the guy who chased her down on the street over her social circle. No chance. If you're getting tons of flakes, this is the reason. But for most guys, the idea of building a social circle, especially if you're traveling or in a new city, can feel overwhelming. So they continue to hunt for women in their usual ways, and they end up settling for a girl they were never really that excited about in the first place. To avoid this fate, join our community of aspiring international playboys and instantly plug into a highly vetted social circle of cool dudes to network and navigate your journey with. You already know it's hard to find a wingman because the good ones don't really stay in the game very long. They get married, life goes on, right? Many of our members travel together, they end up living together, and they build amazing social circles in the best kept secret locations around the globe with gorgeous women and low cost of living. I'm extremely careful who I let into this community, but if you feel like you'd make a good fit, you can learn more about the social funnel method to consistently land top tier women and apply to join our community. The link is in the description. Now let's get back to the show. I have a lot of clients that are digital nomads, a lot of guys living in Europe, Eastern Europe especially. And, given your background, you're Slavic, right? Like I'm really curious to ask you kind of and obviously these are going to be sort of general and it's hard to like bucket a group of people and compare them to another group of people. But do you have any, are you more interested in like Slavic girls versus non-Slavic girls versus South American girls? Like what's your flavor?
Personally, I've always been attracted to big titty, big booty Latina girls. That's always been my jam. Nice. Second place would be like olive skin girls, like Italian or like maybe even Middle Eastern or Arabic or something like that. Some Persian girls are really hot. Yes. So like the white, much more white, like light skinned girls would not be in like my first or second place. I've dated and hooked up with a bunch. I mean, don't get me wrong. My second ever girlfriend was like very pale Irish blonde, so it doesn't get like, she was literally like just like completely like lighter skinned than me. So, but generally my preference has always been like Latinas who are like on the lighter side. Like I don't like the dark skin per se, like just olive skin has always been my preference.
Yeah. It's funny when at least I realize for myself that I'm very attracted to a type of girl who's like, it's the really dark hair sometimes with the very light features. And I never put two and two together, but it's like, it's you always think when you're just like a random, unless you're thinking very deeply about it, you realize like, oh, there's way more that goes into why I'm attracted to a certain type of girl. And a lot of it's just based on like skin tone and the tone between her hair and her skin. Or that's I don't know. I was just kind of shocked when I realized like, oh wait, all of these girls kind of follow that same pattern.
Yeah, if you've looked up a lot of girls, you look for patterns, and you're like, okay, this is the one common theme. Right. Yeah, I like girls who have like long, good hair. I mean, most girls do, but like
hard to find in the U.S.
I've always like
harder to find in the U.S. because.
Not really, honestly, or at least not in Miami. Miami's like 80-90% foreigners anyway.
I mean, it's nothing like Ukraine. When you go to Ukraine and the girls have that like the hair that's just like super shiny. They cut it like straight across and it's like, down to their ass almost. It's that was one of the shocking things when I moved there. I was like, the hair game is just on another level.
Yeah, I love like long hair. I've liked this is kind of rare in Latinas, but I like green or blue eyes. Green eyes would be my first choice. Blue eyes would be second. That's pretty rare in Latinas. There's some, but that's not often. That's more of like the Slavic or European type of girls. But yeah, I mean, so it's like you can't have 100% of what you want in a girl. But my priority has always been like bodies where the girl's like fit, she's like skinny. I don't like any kind of excess fat or any kind of a stomach. but she has like a big ass and huge titties. The joke I always make is that my ideal type of girl is that if she was chased by like a predator 10,000 years ago, she wouldn't be able to get away because she's too curvy to run.
That's great. That kind of brings up a funny question. Spotting girls who are basically trying to, everyone's trying to catfish a little bit, right? Everyone's doctoring their photos to some degree. What are your thoughts on like how much guys should do it and how to look out for women that are doing it? Are there any like red flags or common things that you're telling guys to look out for? Or is it more just like, obviously you have to do it, understand, see the patterns, and
well, if there's no body pics, that's a big red flag. Although not always. I tell guys not to jump to the conclusion that she's fat, but have that in the back of your mind. So at that point, I'll ask for more photos or ask for an Instagram. But if the girl, like you look at her Instagram, and she just doesn't have any clear body photos, that's a huge red flag. I'll be like relentless. I'll be like, if I sense there's even a chance the girl's fat, I'll ask her for like photos, and I'll be like, no, like send me another one. Like sometimes girls will get like pissed off because I asked for, but like I'm not gonna waste my time going out with a girl who's fat. I think that you can see the filters that girls use. I mean, like also looking for like, is there selfies? Like, is there full body selfies? I mean, those are typically going to be less doctored, but you never know. But that's why like the biggest thing I always talk about is just set up the date either to your house or like a bar that's really close to your house. So if the girl doesn't look like her photos, you can instantly bounce. Like I think some guys will waste like 2 hours on a girl they're not attracted to. I won't do that. I mean, I'll be polite. I'll be like, hey, I'm sorry. I appreciate you coming out, but I'm just not interested. If the girl doesn't look like her photos. So that way you don't really lose any time, even if it doesn't work out. For guys, I think that, I think it's almost necessary to exaggerate, but you don't want to go too far because then you're crossing over into catfishing territory. Right. So, like if you're like a 6, I think it's okay to look like a 7. But if you look like a 9, that's kind of taking it too far. So I think Face App is great, but I don't like going like too high on the settings. Right. For anyone who's familiar with Face App, I use the handsome filter 1 or 2. That usually does the trick. But I think like a low amount of Face App is great. Good lighting, good angles are great. But like if you're like 5'10", you can say you're 6 feet. But if you're like 5'6", don't say you're 6 feet. Right. You can round up by an inch or 2, but I wouldn't go like past 2.5 inches.
What about age?
I've never even tried like lowering my age because I find that 34 is still like a really good age to be in for the girls I want. So I've never played around with it. I know lots of people who have. I think a few years is fine. I wouldn't go like more than like 4 or 5 years though.
Because I've got a lot of clients that are in their like mid 40s, a few in their late 40s, even a couple in their late 50s, early 60s. And typically what I tell them and what we found to be the best sort of practice is you don't want to get like weeded out by the algorithm. And it just seems like a lot of girls would put, a decade by decade hard stop on what they would accept or not. Right. So if the guy's 42, I'm like, hey, if you can pull off 36 or 37, that gives you like 2 years of runway where, you're probably going to then appear under 40 for all of those girls. Do you think that's pretty standard or?
Yeah, I think that's totally fine. I think you get into like, you start having issues. I mean, when I say issues, I don't mean like any real issue. I just mean like the girl's just going to be like turned off when you go like a decade or more. But interestingly enough, I did a pretty cool Tinder experiment about like a month ago where I took photos of my dad, who's 15. He's 59 now. We used photos of him when he was like 56. We created a profile for him that set his age at 55. And he got, you're not gonna believe it, but he got something like 200 likes in 48 hours or 24 hours, some insane amount. Now, of course, most of the girls were his age, but there was also quite a few girls that were in their 30s and whatnot. Some chicks that were even in their 20s. But there was more that were like in their 30s or early 40s. So as an older guy, you can do pretty decently. But if you're like 50 years old and you want to fuck like a 19-year-old, that's gonna be really challenging without like either having some kind of status or like using like sugar daddy websites,
like Seeking or something like that. Did you how much effort did you put into like making his photos top notch?
Not a lot. I didn't take any photos of him. We just used his like very limited photos that he has. I FaceTimed them a bit, but yeah, I mean, like people can see you can see the video on my channel. You can see exactly the photos I used, but they weren't like anything special at all. Like they were average photos at best.
What are your thoughts on like having more sort of authentic photos versus like a professional photo shoot or something that looks very like cleaned up and tailored?
I think you don't want it to seem like you actually did a photo shoot, because that's like I think a massive
Right.
turnoff. So like a job of a good professional photographer will be to get the kind of photos that look natural, that don't look like they came from a photo shoot. And 90% of photographers will fail at that, from what I've seen. But the good photographers, like the photographers I will personally recommend, are capable of getting photos that are very natural looking, but they're also, you look really good in
Right.
them. I think it's good. Like this is one of the few things that, or not few things, but some of the things that have changed my perspective on. I think in 2024, it's good to have a selfie or two, because I find that if you have just all like high quality photos that were taken by like a outside camera, is that some girls will think you're fake, or you're like AI, or you're a bot. So I do think it's important nowadays to have like one or two good selfies to counterbalance the whole like catfish phenomenon that's going on. But yeah, I like 3 or 4 really quality, high quality photos where you look good. It's some kind of activity, or it looks natural, and then 1 or 2 selfies.
Yeah, I like that. That's smart that way, because I do have one client who his photos are, clearly they don't look like they were. I mean, they look professional, but they don't look like a photo shoot. But a lot of girls, he's very good looking, so a lot of girls thought he was fake.
Yeah, especially for the good-looking clients I've had, I think it's almost it's essential for them to have a selfie.
Yeah.
Because a lot of girls will just, if you're good-looking and you have her photos, a lot of girls will just assume you're fake.
What do you think on having like social proof photos? Do you think that's necessary at all for online dating? Like you with a group of other girls, or with cool friends?
I've never thought it was necessary, honestly. I've never been a fan of that. I mean, I think they can work if you do them right, but 95% of social proof photos are just like a guy with like either one girl, which is not good,
Right.
or unless you're going for like a threesome profile, or like a guy with like 3 of his bros, which is also not that good. So yeah, I always tell guys to avoid them unless they live a cool lifestyle, which most guys don't, where they have access to cool social proof photos. Like for example, for me, like I have a photo of me on a podcast. You can see it's like the host. There's a few girls there. Like that's a good photo, but most people won't get a photo like that because they're not like influencers or whatever. I mean, you can get like I've seen. You don't have to be an influencer. I've seen like I have friends who like they go to like cool pool parties and they have a good photo. They're like kind of jacked. There's a few girls. There's a few guys. It looks like people having fun. It looks like a natural group of friends. Like those photos are good, but those photos are few and far in between. I think the vast majority of guys will fuck it up when they try to do social proof photos.
Yeah, for sure. It's difficult to get one that actually does a job, like you said, and there's a lot that are gonna
for the average guy, for
Right.
sure.
So,
Yeah.
what do you think in terms of like there's obviously an optimal way to get good at online dating, right? And then there's probably the shit that most guys do wrong, which what I've seen from most of the clients that come to me before, it's like they throw up a few photos, they don't really put much time into it, they get some shitty results, or they use a few scripts, they don't use the scripts correctly, and then they say the scripts suck, or this doesn't work, or that doesn't work, and then they kind of give up on it, or they just don't. Yeah, I guess they don't really give up, because they always go back to it, but they say I'm going to give up, and then they don't, of course. But what would you say is like the biggest, or not the biggest, but like what is the correct way to learn to be good with online dating?
I mean, aside from watching my content,
Well,
I mean, if you think about it,
that's a good
if
place to
you
start. Yeah.
if you're like oversimplified, it boils down to photos and texting or messaging, right? So for photos, you just need to get good photos, which usually starts with finding a professional photographer who knows what they're doing, which is again very few and far in between.
Sure.
The sad reality of the matter is the majority of professional photographers suck when it comes to dating photos. Yeah, like I feel bad. Some people pay like $2,000, $3,000 for a photo shoot, and they don't have one usable photo from that. That's good for dating app. So that's the first part. The second part is the texting. Obviously, it's a whole thing I can talk about for like 20, 30 minutes. But really, if you boil down texting, it comes down to what? Opening, So, getting the girl, the conversation started essentially. Getting the girl to invest in the convo or banter or flirt, whatever you want to call it. Then closing, and then dealing with any objections that they come up, and then confirming. So if you can just master the basics, like I have a video called The Fundamentals of Text Games, something like that, and I boil it down to those. So if you can just master the fundamentals, that'll get you like 70% of the way there.
Nice. Do you find that I mean, the thing that I see time and time again is guys will use scripts, but they won't really take the trouble to understand the psychology behind the script. And then they'll just like blunder random lines and kind of like ignore what the girl's saying half the time. And I always find myself having to like slow them down and be like, dude, like do you really actually understand the psychology behind what this line is or what's happening there? And these are smart guys.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot. Yeah, I don't like that. I don't generally like the concept of like scripts per se. I think it's good to have like some like backup text that you can use. But I do think it's important to understand text game on some level. I mean, I guess the alternative to that is that's why I created Firetext, my AI texting app. I guess you can just use that. But even for that, I think it's helpful. You'll have better outcomes if you understand the fundamentals of text game. Because like the app will give you like multiple options, and then you still have to pick the best one, right? So I think that knowing the fundamentals of texting and just social interactions in general is almost necessary.
That's cool. You developed an app. I also have a AI in my Discord channel. Who one of the guys who's a very techie CEO, big in the tech world, and another guy who's like an AI expert. Basically train this thing on all of my content, all of the, a ton of books, a ton of stuff. And the hardest thing for them was to get it to be not politically correct, right? And run it through sort of all those like chat GPT things. And it's still obviously could be improved a lot, but it's pretty good. Tell me how you got the AI thing. Because I saw that on your profile. I think that's dope.
We use GBT, so we use OpenAI as a platform, but we trade it ourselves, so there's no political correctness. Like my AI app is not politically correct at all. It says some like fucking outrageous things from time to time when warranted. So, but yeah, just training it ourselves on like thousands and thousands of examples. So we would just like feed it sample conversations, like we just had an Excel spreadsheet of thousands of combos, and I would just like give what I thought was the best answer in each situation. Beginning of combo, middle of combo, end of combo, various objections, concerns, like every type of scenario. We try to like give like 100 examples for, and then we trained on all of that, and then it came out pretty good.
Nice. Remind me to ask you about it. That's part of your course too?
Not exactly. No, they're separate companies.
That's just a standalone thing that guys.
Yeah, it's a standalone thing.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, the ones I've seen.
Sometimes we do like promotions, but yeah, they're separate things.
The ones I've seen, like the Rizinator, whatever, like they're so bad.
Yeah, the Rizz app is horrible. I've done live streams where I compared my app to the Rizz app, or I've compared my app to ChatGPT. Yeah, they're horrible. I've written articles on this too, so people can check it out if they want. But yeah, they're pretty bad. Because the problem isn't with AI. The problem is with the training. Like the person who trains it, if they don't have really good text game, then the outcome is going to be like you're only going to be as good as the person who trained it. If the person who trained it is just like your average techie after college or whatever, then like there's no way you can have a good outcome. Again, it's like AI is only going to be as good as the person who trained it.
Do you have any specific just words of wisdom or advice for guys who are using online dating, who are Western guys, American guys, whatever, but they're living abroad?
I think it's easier if you're abroad, or at least most countries it is. Like probably exception of like Saudi Arabia or something like that, but. Or like fucking, I don't know, like some like place where, I don't know, it will be a difficult place, maybe like fucking Siberia or something like that. But even maybe there or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, so I think it's easier. I think it's good to kind of leverage the fact that you're from America, because that's always a high value thing. You don't want to be like too try hard or obvious about it though, but girls will be able to tell based on like your profile, you can say like, for example, if I was living in like, let's say Hungary, I would just say something like, just moved to Hungary 2 months ago. And then girls will ask like, oh, where are you from? And I'll say America. So you want to be like a little bit subtle. But I think it's harder for Americans who live in America versus Americans who live abroad, honestly.
Yeah, I agree completely. Oh.
But I think that you should also have some idea of the local culture,
right?
Especially for places like Ukraine Like I have seen Americans that go there and they just like strike out because they just have no idea of the cultural differences between Ukrainians and Americans.
Yeah, guys always assume that like, oh, it's going to be so easy when I move to Eastern Europe or something, right? Because I've heard stories, and it's completely not the case. I feel like to do well over there, you have to be able to first of all do well here, and then if you do well here, sure you can do well there too. But if you have no understanding of the culture and you're just like a obvious sex tourist, girls are pretty good at sniffing that out.
Yeah, yeah. In a place where there's a lot of sex tourism, the last thing you want to do is come off as a sex tourist. Like, that's why, like, for example, you can tell like a white lie. You like if a girl asks you, "What are you doing here?" Don't say like, "Oh, I came down here with my friends to party." Say like, "Oh, I'm here for a work trip" or something like that. You definitely want to distance yourself from the possibility in her mind that you're a sex tourist.
So switching gears a little bit to Instagram, how vital do you think it is for online dating? And then do you ever encounter the guys who are like, I want to get really good online dating, but I don't want to do Instagram. I don't want to do the stories. And I don't want to do all the things, because I encounter that a lot. And my advice, it's like, well, if you actually want to get really good results and move on and, be a cool social person, pretty hard to operate without Instagram. I guess you could do it, but
I think Instagram is helpful, but not necessary. I think it can be really helpful, but I don't think it's necessary. I do know people who do quite well on dating apps, and they never, because they're like they want to hide it for a variety of reasons. Like maybe they're just worried about their identity or whatever, and they never like show their Instagram, or some of them don't even have like any kind of like substantial Instagram. It's like some like few shitty pics with their friends.
right.
But I do think it's helpful, but I don't think it's necessary. But you will lose out on certain percentage of girls if you don't have an Instagram. Just certain girls will just think it's shady that you don't have an Instagram. They'll think you're either like a serial killer, or you're antisocial, or you're weird, or that you're a catfish. So just be prepared for that. There's ways to mitigate that. The catfish thing, for example, if the girl is like, "Oh, you don't have an Instagram? How do I know you're real?" You can be like, "Well, I can send you a photo of me with 2 fingers or something." Right. So there's some of these things that you can address over text. But yeah, you got to be prepared. But if you have really good photos and you're getting so many matches, it doesn't really matter if you miss out on like 40% of them, because you still got like way more than you can handle.
Right. Yeah. Just in terms of like the quantity required to be successful, is there any sort of like cadence you recommend for how much time guys spend on the apps, or how much swiping to do per day or anything like that? I get a lot of like,
I think like 5 minutes of swiping a day per app is sufficient. I don't think you have to do that much swiping. Even 2 or 3 minutes, you can probably get away with. So I don't think you need to do a lot of swiping. But in terms of like how much texting, depends on your texting style, depends on how long it takes you to come up with a text. But just swiping alone, it's a few minutes should suffice per app.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's not a lot at all. I wanted to ask you, I love I think it's so genius. The what's the Indian dude's name that like crushes for you?
His real name is Nitin, but he goes by Indian P.
Indian P, yeah. Tell me his story. How'd you guys link up? And like, I love that video you put out where you're basically just like comparing him, just all this stuff. He's like, I'm not rich. I'm an Indian guy, because there's so many guys that come to me that are like Asian or Indian. They're like, oh, it's impossible for us, and they've got all these excuses. And I'm like, look at this guy.
Yeah, he's like the ultimate motivational story. Especially if you look at photos of him from like 10 years ago, they're so bad. Like even I can hardly recognize him. So his story is that he grew up in India. Like most Indian guys, like was a virgin who was supposed to get an arranged marriage when they grew up. Came to America for, I think, college or tech. Yeah, college. He came to America for college, kind of discovered American culture, realized he doesn't want to have an arranged marriage, started trying to pick up girls, started following like RSD and like other online dating stuff, struggled for a while, did a bunch of boot camps, was still struggling. Then he met my old business partner, David, and they were roommates and friends for a while. So that's how I met him. I met him through my old business partner. Eventually how I became like friends with him is kind of a funny story. My old business partner was really lazy. So what he was doing was he was having Indian P like do a lot of the work for him when Indian P was like pretty good at that point. And then I kind of learned that, and I was like, okay, well, like, what the fuck? Like, why do I need you if like you're just gonna outsource all your work to this dude?
Right.
So I was like, I want to meet the dude that's actually doing the work that I thought you were doing. And so we linked up. We took a trip to Colombia. Yeah, we became friends ever since.
So yeah, how did he kind of overcome the whole like stereotype and all the shit that a lot of those guys, wrongly conclude when they haven't had much success?
well, number one, he talks about is like, don't be like the average fob Indian. So don't wear like the fob Indian outfits. Don't have the fob Indian look. Like, so for example, if you look at photos of him from like 10 years ago, he's got like a really bad hairline. He's got like a fucking sweater jacket or something like that. He's got glasses. So he shaved his head bald, grew out a mustache, put on some muscle, started wearing like, white people clothes or like,
Right.
like shirts that like fit you well and shit like that. Got good fashion, started going out, instead of being like the typical Indian that's overly analytical, started learning how to be more like charismatic and have an emotional impact on the girl, be more sexual rather than being like ultra logical and analytical. But yeah, I think in terms of why he didn't give up, probably because my old business partner was like 300 pounds. So he was like probably thinking if that fatty can do it, then so can I. So I think that's probably part of it. I don't know. Some people like are kind of quitters. Some people are not. He's never been a quitter.
Yeah.
He is pretty dedicated. And I've never been a quitter either. Like some people are just much more likely to quit fast than other people.
For sure.
Real quick, so I'm excited that you're here listening to the podcast, but if you're someone who's more of a visual learner, like I am, and you'd benefit from seeing what you're hearing instead of just listening, then I invite you to go over and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm back to publishing videos there every week, and some of the lessons can't be found here in the audio feed because, well, you need to see them in order to learn. So if you haven't already, subscribe to the Robbie Kramer YouTube channel via the link in the show notes, and you'll get more tips, tutorials, lessons, and for better or worse, more of my face. All right. Hope to see you over on YouTube. Now let's get back to the show.
Yeah, I've got one former client who basically looks like the biggest Asian fob you could possibly look like, and he even has like
Right.
Chinese characters in his profile. And
Oh yeah. Oh, no.
I'm like, dude, you gotta get a haircut. You gotta change your fashion. You gotta get new photos. And he refused to do any of that. And well, so far he's refused. And he also copied a profile of like some pickup guy, Captain Jack or something, and he was like using the same like weird lingo as like a Chinese fobby looking dude. I'm like, that's just not gonna work. And he's like, online dating doesn't work for Indian guys. I'm like, well, yeah, if you're making all those mistakes.
Yeah, you don't want to be an ethnic fob, especially for Asian or Chinese. Asian and Chinese are the same thing, but Asian and Indian, like you don't want to be a fob. I think some countries it's more okay to be a fob, like Italian fob. I think would probably do
You're
pretty
just a
well.
Guido, yeah.
But sort of, or like fucking even like a Greek fob or something like that. But yeah, Indian fob, Chinese fob, yeah, it's no bueno. That's not good. That's not gonna work.
No bueno for sure. So you've got. I'm excited for the course that you have. Is you change some things up on it, or it's the same course, or tell me like what?
Yeah, sure. It's I updated about 2.5 years ago or so. Around 2022, I think I updated the 2.0 version. But yeah, it's like super comprehensive, covers everything from like photos, texting, has like a million case studies, talks about like fucking how to put on muscle, written by like a professional personal trainer, or like fashion, written by a fashion consultant. Like covers like literally everything. Inner game, what to do on a date, what to do afterwards, how to keep a girl around, how to have a fuck buddy, how to have a girlfriend. There's even a video of Indian P literally eating a girl out. Like,
I love it.
There's literally like you can see it with like him voice narrating in his Indian accent.
Oh, amazing.
So it's like super duper comprehensive, and he has like everything, and then some. But yeah, we've had that for 2.5 years. People seem to really like it. People seem to really enjoy it. So yeah, it's been going pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, because my bread and butter is social circle stuff. And most of the guys that join my community, they're either half are in the U.S., half are abroad. But they're trying to build their social circle out. They're obviously trying to use that as like their main dating funnel. But I'm always telling guys, like, if you're not doing online dating, like you're missing out on the biggest percentage of the female population that's like looking for love, right? Like back in maybe 2012, 2015, 16, there was a little bit of the stigma against online dating. But now it's like everyone uses online dating, and you have to be pretty foolish just to not use it at all.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misconceptions that exist about online dating, especially amongst like guys. Number one is that you can't find like a girlfriend on online dating. It's only like sluts and whatever 304s that are hanging out around dating apps. It's not true at all.
It's funny actually because sorry to cut you off, but most of the guys that I encounter, they have like the opposite. They're like, the only girls I can meet online are the ones that want to like boyfriends on me and husbands on me, and they're like, I want to, you know.
Another misconception. Right. So I guess two misconceptions on the opposite end of the spectrum. Right. I encounter that's interesting. I encounter like the slut one more, where guys think like, yeah, but I want a girlfriend. I want something more serious. I want a quality girl. Every girl on Tinder has probably had sex with 50 guys. I'm like, no, it's not true. The vast majority of them haven't even hit double digits body count. So I think that's the first one. Like, I met my current girlfriend on Bumble. The girlfriend I had before that, actually her I met at a bar, but the one before that I met on Tinder. The one before that, actually that was also a bar. But so like 2 out of my 5 serious relationships I met on dating apps. In like the current relationship, my longest relationship, the one that I think I'll probably be in forever, is the one I met on Bumble. That's one. Number 2 is that there's a misconception that like, oh, unless you're in like the top 10% of guys, you're like real like 7.5, 8 and above, you can't do well. That's not true at all. Indian P, for example, is clearly not a 7.5. Neither am I, honestly. And we've done quite well on dating apps. Then there's like, oh, I can't do well because I'm this ethnicity or this insert like set of circumstances, because I live in this city, because I'm this height, because I'm this whatever. All of them, like, we have case studies on our channel about like every single one of them, like proving every single one of them wrong. Of course, no, I'm not gonna say it's like if you're short, it's gonna be harder. Right. But like, there's a guy, AMD, he's 5'3". He's done quite well from Tinder, you know. So
that's impressive.
You're probably not gonna be sure about 5'3". My craziest like case study was a guy who had cerebral palsy. So he literally like half of his body and face was paralyzed. He like really couldn't talk well. He was like, I'm not trying to make fun of him. That's like literally how he talked. And he was able to get a girlfriend from Tinder. So I think that's been like, people have said that's like my most craziest like testimonial, because if like, I guarantee 99.9% of people watching this probably are at a higher starting point than someone with cerebral palsy. Right. So again, there's going to be more work required if you're starting lower, like in terms of looks or whatever, desirability, but it is doable for the vast majority of people. I think the only exception is, there might be a few exceptions. Number one, if you live in like Saudi Arabia or like some ultra religious country, right. I think dating apps are not really a thing there. Even like some Arabic country, like I think in Jordan, for example, you could probably get away with using Tinder. But yeah, like some Arabic countries, they just, whatever, they're just too strict for that. I think if you live in like the middle of the woods and there's no one around you for 60 miles, it might be a challenge. Although I've used Tinder successfully in relatively rural areas, so even that one I'm not as sure about. But yeah, I think like for 99% of guys can ultimately do well with dating apps if they follow the right advice. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy for every guy. For some guys, it will be difficult. And, I've coached quite a few of those guys for whom it's a process, but it is doable if you wanted to. It's like just starting a business isn't easy for most people, right? But it's doable. I think if you take the right kind of action step. Actually, no, I think starting a business is actually probably going to be much more difficult now that I think about it, because there's financial matters involved, like your whole future is tied to it, versus if you fail at Tinder, you don't really lose anything. Right. It's doable. I just think people usually follow the wrong instructions and they come up with the conclusion that dating apps doesn't work, insert whatever excuse they have.
Sure. Have you ever seen guys who are like, I've heard guys complain about this. They think they're shadow banned or something, or like their profile is fucked.
I hear that all the time. 95% of the time they're not shadow banned. They just have a shitty photos. That's just what I've been my experience. Right. The vast majority of the time they're not shadow banned.
Yeah, so you don't think there's any value in just like starting a new profile? Or
the vast majority of the time there's not. A small percentage of the time, yes. But those are more for guys that were aggressive Tinder users and were like sending out some like racy texts and like, for the average guy, no. I think the vast majority of them are not shadow banned. I don't want to exclude it because it does happen, but my experience has been with clients that out of the guys who say they're shadow banned, the vast majority of them are not actually shadow banned.
Yeah. A lot of guys have a lot of excuses for, why they're sucking. And it's usually they failed to do something that was relatively simple and they've overlooked it. And they're making it way more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah. I mean, I think that like a lot of guys are just not cognizant of I think self-awareness is kind of rare. And so a lot of guys aren't cognizant, or social awareness even, aren't cognizant of the mistakes, because you don't know what you don't know, right? So they're not cognizant of the mistakes they're making. That's where like having some kind of guidance comes in really useful.
For sure. So, dude, this has been awesome. For everyone listening, I highly suggest you grab the course. If you're doing any online dating and you're not using Alex's stuff, like, what are you doing? That's kind of my whole thought process on it. So yeah, any other things you want to plug or?
Oh, let me be creative. I'll do like a special thing for your viewers. Whoever one of your viewers gets my course, if they email me, I'll give them like 1,000 free Firetext credits. I'll give them a shitload of access to Firetext, so they can use that for like, I'll give them like a month or two worth of free usage.
Nice.
So yeah, so just like send me an email, playingwithfirechannel@gmail.com if you get the course, and I'll give you like a crap load of free Firetext credits.
Awesome. Yeah, the link's in the show notes to pick it up. So, dude, thanks so much for coming back on. It's always fun to shoot the shit.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
All right, talk soon.
Take it easy, buddy.
I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you're a regular listener and you're digging our content, do me a favor, leave us a 5-star review. It's how other people learn about the show and how we can spread the word. If you don't feel like it's worthy of 5 stars, just go ahead, don't leave any review at all. And I want to let you know that we've opened up a few slots in our exclusive community. We're accepting applications to join our select group of men and experience the radical power of accountability, step up your game, cross everything off your sexual bucket list, and become a beast at accomplishing all of your goals. To learn more and apply, go to innerconfidence.com/community.